Well, after our graduation from the Bloomingdale High School in 1941, I attended to the Myers Business College in Kalamazoo. After Pearl Harbor, I wanted to join the Marines. The only thing was that I was 17, and to join, I had to have my mother sign for me. She hesitated to sign because she thought that maybe they wouldn't take me because I was so small. But on January 14th, 1942, I enlisted in the Marines in Detroit. I called my mother to tell her that I had been accepted and I was on the way to San Diego. When I arrived at San Diego, I was placed in the Marine boot camp. During the 8 weeks that I was in the boot camp, the drill sergeants had done a wonderful job of getting us prepared as to what was going to happen in the future. They were very thorough. After we graduated from the boot camp, I was placed in a heavy weapons company with Camp Elliott. Because of my business background, they asked me to come and work in the office. It was really a great job. However, later I wanted to be transferred from the office back to my machine gun squad, and I wondered if I had made a good decision. In August, we were transferred from Camp Elliott to Camp Pendleton. In January, we went aboard a ship to go to New Zealand. While we were in New Zealand, we did a lot of hikes. Some were 72 miles in 3 days with a full pack and pulling a machine gun cart. We were very pleased with the Red Cross because they had a recreation hut, and almost every night they would furnish tea and pound cake. If you went on Liberty and went to the restaurant, you could have steak and eggs or steak and tomatoes for 35 cents. In June, we boarded a ship to go back to Guadalcanal, which had been secured. Every night, a Japanese bomber would come in, and we would have to leave our bed and get into a foxhole. In November, we boarded the ship to go to our first campaign, which was Bougainville. When we got to Bougainville, you had to go over the side of the ship and down a rope ladder to get into a Higgins boat. The boat was going up and down with the waves, and it was pretty tricky to let go of that boat or let go of the rope at the right time to drop into the boat. One of our men missed the boat, went into the water, and he never came up. At the end of December, we had secured Bougainville, except it was a lot of swamp, and any time that you dug a foxhole, it would fill up with water. In the event of a firefight, it didn't make any difference if the foxhole was full of water. In July, we went to our next campaign, which was Guam. On Guam, the Japanese defense was called Fonte Ridge. Our company started up the hill with 250 men, and when we got to the top of the hill, there were 50. There was a Japanese helmet laying there, and I rolled it over, and out fell a Japanese flag. It was a silk flag with about 3x5 with a lot of signatures on it. I folded up the flag and put it in my helmet. I was pleased that wherever I went, the helmet went with me. After I was discharged, I gave the flag in my helmet to my son and daughter-in-law. They had the flag framed, and now the flag and the helmet hang on the wall in their house outside of Lansing. We had a banzai attack. One bullet had ricocheted off my helmet. One had gone through the stock of my carbine. One went through my right arm, and one through my left knee. The doctors patched me up, and I was able to return to my squad. We then started training for our next campaign, which was Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima was just a small island in the middle of nowhere. It was halfway between Guam and Japan. When our planes would go to Japan for a bombing raid, if they had a problem, it was very difficult for them to get back. After we secured Iwo, they then had a place to land. It was estimated that it saved 2,300 planes and about 27,000 airmen. On February 19th, the 4th and 5th Divisions landed on Iwo. We were in the 3rd Division and we were held in reserve. On February 23rd, the flag went up on Mount Suribachi and everybody cheered. On February 24th, our 3rd Division landed on Iwo. It was kind of an unusual island because it was all caves and tunnels. You might go a long time and have somebody shoot at you, and there was nobody that you could see to shoot at in return. The island was a little different than many of them. There were days that we could only move 100 yards. There was an area ahead of us that had caused a problem, and they had decided to attack it in the dark. On the morning of March 7th at 5 o'clock in the morning, we moved out to attack this area. Our company got detached from the 2nd Battalion and in the dark, and the Japanese surrounded us and we were cut to pieces. I was in the shell hole with my platoon sergeant. A shell came in and landed between us and blew both of us out of the shell hole. It killed him and seriously wounded me. I had shrapnel that went through my arm and my left foot. The pain was so intense that I either had to get some medical attention or be put out of my misery. I started crawling, and I crawled past the Japanese that were about 10 feet away. And why they didn't shoot me, I guess I'll never know. But anyhow, I crawled until a corpsman saw me, picked me up, and took me to the hospital. After I recovered enough, I was flown from Iwo back to Guam. At Guam, they went to put a cast on my arm, and there was a little black spot inside my elbow. Come to find out, some shrapnel had gone through my elbow and hadn't come out the other side. The doctor removed it, gave it to me, and later my wife had it framed and it's hanging on the wall in our apartment. So I was in the hospital for the different hospitals for 10 months. Hardly a day goes by that I don't think of my friends who were killed in action. The real hero was those men and women who never came back. A ceremony was held at the hospital for 16 of us that were receiving medals. I received the 2nd Purple Heart and my Navy Cross. This is Corporal D.A. Remington, awarded the Navy Cross for heroism on Iwo Jima. Bloomingdale Marine destroyed Jap pillboxes and prepared the way for flamethrowers. The heroism of the Battle of Iwo Jima, Corporal Donald A. Remington, 21, of U.S. Marine Corps, now in the Great Lakes Naval Training Station Hospital, was awarded the Navy Cross and a citation by Captain John Chambers. He was one of 16 to receive awards. For extraordinary heroism in action against the enemy while attached to a Marine Infantry Battalion on Iwo Jima, February 26 to March 7, 1945. Corporal Remington, a squad leader in a machine gun platoon on 26 February, in complete disregard for his own safety, braved intense mortar and small arms fire while bringing to cover 4 wounded Marines. As a result of this action, all the men were safely evacuated. On 27 February, his platoon was unable to continue its advance because of several connecting and supporting enemy pillboxes. Through enemy fire, he crawled to the nearest pillbox and proceeded to drop hand grenades into the position. He continued until he had destroyed 4 enemy pillboxes and enabled the flamethrowers to complete the annihilation of the enemy. On 7th March, the evacuation of a group of wounded was subjected to heavy enemy fire. Unable to properly direct the party while remaining prone, Corporal Remington stood up and fiercely exposed himself to the enemy while covering evacuation with the fire of his rifle. His outstanding devotion to duty and courageous actions were in keeping with the highest tradition of the United States Navy. Corporal Remington joined the Marines January 4, 1942, and was sectioned on Bougainville, Guam, and Iwo Jima. In addition to the Navy Cross, he wears the Asiatic Pacific Theater Ribbon, the Purple Heart Medal, 4 stars, Bronze Star Ribbon. He's the son of Mrs. Grace Remington of Bloomingdale. After I was returned at the end of the campaign in Guam, so I went to college, thank heavens, on the GI Bill, which was fortunate. I got my bachelor's degree and master's degree in secondary education. I taught school for 4 years and then went into the insurance business. Since then, we've sold the business to our son, and he's been very successful at it. Later, I had promised my wife that someday I would have us in a retirement community. Before I was age 80, we have been here at Shell Point going on 13 years, and it was a very wise decision to come here. We're very happy here, and I think our 2 children are very happy for us. In our vets meetings, every so often there'd be an honor flight to Washington, and you had to be a veteran of World War II to get in it. I applied for it, and thankfully they said I could go. So we'll go to Washington one day and come back. So I was very happy that I was able to do it.